I'm Jono, and in this video we're actually going to address a question which came in from Esteban a few weeks ago, which is about whether or not it's just switching drum programming all across to Drum Machine Designer now because it's a more capable drum machine than Ultrabeat. And that kind of got me thinking, and it got me playing again with Ultrabeat and thinking deeply about that question. And what I've discovered, of course, is that Ultrabeat has got some tricks up its sleeve, which mean that it's not worth using instead of Drum Machine Designer, but it's definitely worth thinking about when it comes to drum programming because it can definitely do some things that Drum Machine Designer can't. And what we're going to do in this video is to look at a couple of them. So firstly, let's just have a quick interface tour of Ultrabeat. I'm going to open it here at the same time as playing you this little pattern that I've put together for it here using the step sequencer. Okay, so just to show you exactly what's happening, if I open up the step sequence, what I can see are the individual notes that I've programmed. There they are for the various sounds within this kit. And the only thing I varied is some velocity. So effectively, some of the notes have got little velocity offsets so that not everything is absolutely strictly the same velocity from one step to the next. And then I've done one little thing in order to create the little snare groove right at the end. I've got a note repeat option here, which is just splitting that last hit. So we get the kind of two notes in the space of one right there. Now, I've actually made a video about the step sequencer, so if you want to learn more about how to design beats within the step sequencer, do go and watch that. But what we're going to do now is to close down the step sequencer, and instead we're going to reopen the Ultrabeat interface to explore one particular feature in particular, which I think is really worth having a look at. And that is the idea that what we're going to actually do is to sort of sound design an individual kit element using an external sidechain signal. Now, before we get into exactly what I mean by that, let's just actually have a look at how any voice within Ultrabeat is designed. So let's take, for example, the kick drum. I'm going to solo it for a second, and you can see that I've got it highlighted here. So when I click on the kick, I can see exactly what's making the kick up at the moment. So when I solo it, we're going to hear it by itself. But when I say making the kick up, what do I mean? Okay, well, I mean this. What we've effectively got within Ultrabeat is 3 separate sound layers, all of which can be used either by themselves or in combination. And at the moment, I can see that the first one of these down here is playing a sample. Now, I can see that because I can see the waveform display, but also I can see there are 3 separate options for what this particular sound engine can be within Ultrabeat. So remember, this is the kick, and this is just one of its sound engines. It's the only one that's switched on, and it's playing back a sample. And if I wanted to, I could browse here and go and find a different sample to use as a replacement kick. But what I can also do is to turn on, if I want to, a phase oscillator. So in other words, as a second layer of sound, what I can do is to trigger an oscillated kick drum, a synthetic one, which I can blend in underneath the sample. Now, at the moment, what I've got effectively is a tone, one that I've just kind of created. And if what I wanted to do was to actually, in some way, modify that so it felt like it was actually playing back with this kick, what I can do is I can use an envelope to interrupt this sound, basically giving it some shape. Now, I want to shape the volume portion, which is here. So what I'm actually going to do is to turn the volume way down, but I'm going to introduce an envelope by turning up this blue area around the outside. Now, what this is going to do is to effectively bring an envelope into play to shape the way that the volume of this sound is going to behave. Now, if I look down to the bottom, I can see that this is happening with the sample as well. I can see that envelope 2 is being used to modify the volume. So if I switch envelope 1 to envelope 2, hopefully what we'll find is that the shape of envelope 2 is now working on this sound as well as on the sample. So now what I've got is this kind of synth layer underneath the sample. And there's a third option here as well, which is to bring in a noise generator. So if I wanted some noise to be added to the sound, I could do the same thing here. Straight away, I'm also going to control its volume using the same envelope again. And again, what I want to do is to have the volume kind of off until the envelope opens it up. And by having envelope 2 affect all 3 of the oscillators or sound generators that are contributing to this sound, effectively I've got the same shape being applied to all of them. Okay, I don't need too much of that noise. So effectively what we've got within Ultrabeat are 3 separate sound generators, all of which can be used at the same time to generate an individual voice within our drum machine. And remember, this is just the kick. I can go through every single kit piece and make similar decisions about the way that they're going to work. However, this isn't the technique that I wanted to show you. What I wanted to do was to show you that actually one of the sound generator engines can be a sidechain input. And to demonstrate this, I'm going to come out of solo mode for the kick drum. So we're back to our entire collection of beats. And what I'm going to do is to find the hi-hat, which is here. Okay, so here's our hi-hat part here. And you can see that I've got the same options up here at the top. If I wanted to, I could add an oscillator underneath the sample that's playing back. Don't think that's going to sound very good. Sure enough, we've got this kind of tone that's now just playing all the way through this track. But what I want to do is to switch across here to the sidechain input. And what this is going to do is it's going to route a sound from outside Ultrabeat into Ultrabeat so that it can be triggered as part of one of the voices within my kit. So effectively it's going to get triggered every time the hi-hat plays. Now, what do I want to bring in? Well, I've recorded a little Rhodes part here for this project, which is up here at the top. And before we go any further, let's just have a listen to it. So alongside the beat, it sounds like this. Okay, so what I'm actually going to do is to turn off the output routing for the Rhodes. I don't want it to get to the stereo output channel. I want it to be silent. I want those notes to play. I just don't want them to be routed through to the main stereo output. What I want to do instead is to route this signal from the Rhodes into Ultrabeat. So I'm going to go and find the instrument that's playing it. Here it is, it's called Rhodes. I'm going to just route that in. And now it's coming in as a side chain signal source for the closed hi-hat. So the hi-hat is still going to play the sample, but alongside that, it's also going to play the Rhodes wherever it detects it. Now I'm going to need to shape this sound as well. Let's just have a listen to how it sounds right out of the box. Now, because there's no volume shaping on this sound, it's just playing. Remember, it's not being routed to the main output from the Rhodes channel itself. So effectively, the reason we can hear it is because it's playing back through the hi-hat channel. So what I need to do is to turn its volume down. And instead, what I need to do is to go and find my envelope again. Envelope 2 I'm going to use, which is this shape here. And I'm going to control the amount that the envelope is now going to affect this signal. Now the hi-hat part is playing eighth notes, which means that every single eighth note is going to trigger a slice of this sound. So I may need to adjust the envelope if it feels like it's too long, just so we actually get to hear this sound being chopped up. So that's quite an interesting way of combining one track element with another. In other words, the Rhodes has effectively become part of the hi-hat of this track. Let's put a bass line underneath it and see how that sounds. Now there, I'm just varying the decay time. If I wanted to, I could automate that parameter. So effectively, the kind of gating of this Rhodes sound became part of the experience of this track. So within this video, what we've done is to discover that Ultrabeat is an amazingly flexible instrument. In fact, we're really only scratching the surface here. We've explored the fact that every single voice within an Ultrabeat kit can have 3 separate voice generators. And what we've begun to discover is that one of those can be a sidechain input signal. What that means is that I can take a sound from outside of Ultrabeat and route it through so that it's effectively being triggered by one of the voices within any kit. And I can still combine that. As we've heard, we've still got the hi-hat sample, but effectively now that pattern sequence that I generated is now triggering not just that sample, but also part of the Rhodes sound within this track.